Hello and welcome back to part 2 of MYEP's English Science Vocabulary series. As I said before, words on the list are highlighted in green, other useful words are highlighted in red. This list is in alphabetical order and in part 2 we pick up at the letter G. Gas. A gas is when the molecules in a substance are separate from each other. There is still matter in a gas, but we cannot touch it, or rather, we cannot feel it. Gas is not the same as vapor, but they are a good comparison because you can't touch them in the same way. Science thinks about gases like molecules flying around in a space. But because there are millions of them, we have to come up with different mathematical ways of treating a gas. Gene. Genes are the program information for living things. Every living thing has this information. Genes are put together into long chains. This is what we call DNA, and it makes you the kind of organism you are. A human, I hope. And also what makes you different from all other humans. Gravity. Gravity is a force that makes objects move together. It happens because of mass. It makes us move towards the Earth. Actually, everything in the universe attracts everything else with gravity, but the force is very, very weak at long distances. Isaac Newton first described gravity, but Albert Einstein changed the way we think about it in the early 20th century. Infinity. Infinity is a limitless quantity. It is a size so big it never ends. This can be a hard idea to think about, but don't worry about it too much. We move towards infinity by making things bigger and bigger and bigger, or smaller and smaller and smaller, and seeing what happens. We usually do this with mathematics, which follows set patterns. Insulator. An insulator is a substance which does not carry heat or electricity very well. Rubber is the most well-known insulator, used in protective clothing, but many plastics and also ceramics are good insulators. This is why you often see plastic and ceramic parts in electricity substations. Ion. An ion is an atom or molecule which has an electric charge. Atoms usually have zero charge because the number of positive protons and negative electrons is balanced. But if they somehow lose or gain electrons, then they can have a positive or negative charge. When this happens, there is likely to be some kind of chemical change. Laboratory or laboratory. A laboratory is a room where scientists do experiments. There are many different types of laboratory. Some of them might be better called workshops. Sometimes science is done in the outside world, but the idea of a laboratory is controlling the experiment so that you know exactly what changes at the end. Life. Life is a type of very complex chemistry that makes copies of itself. That might sound like a strange way to talk about it, as we are life after all, but at the most basic level, that's what's happening. But there is still so much we don't understand about life and all the different types of life that exist on Earth. That's why we have biology. Life also changes over time when very, very small genetic changes add up. This is what we call evolution. Liquid. In a liquid, all the molecules can move around, but they still touch each other. Water is the liquid we all know best, but almost anything can be made into a liquid, although admittedly, rocks need to be very hot before they become a liquid, but hydrogen needs to be very cold. Mass. Mass is the absolute amount of something. If you have more mass, you have more stuff. There are many different types of matter, but they all have mass. Mass is not the same as weight, although they are often measured the same way. This is because of gravity, which means that weight changes, but mass does not. We use mass, along with other things, to calculate how a physical object moves, and this is a part of physics called mechanics. Mathematics. Maths is the study of patterns using numbers and symbols, and graphs. The most basic form of maths is arithmetic, adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing. But there are many more complex forms of math, because there are many more complex kinds of pattern. Matter. Matter is anything that has mass and is made from elements. We said it before, but there are many different types of matter, and they often behave in different ways. All the different elements on the periodic table are matter, but there are also compounds, so the different types of matter in the universe are almost infinite. And there we'll take another break for part 2 of this series on basic English vocabulary. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and share it with your friends, and I hope to see you again in part 3.